Hey guys, it's Kay. I hope you're all well. Now in today's video, I'm going to show you my top 5 projects on the Raspberry Pi 4. Now the Raspberry Pi 4 is a single board computer that allows makers, enthusiasts and hobbyists to develop and tinker with software and hardware to create all kinds of projects from simple electronic circuits to full-scale robots. Now my top 5 projects have one thing in common. They're simple to make and they're fun to set up and you're going to enjoy using them. So if that sounds like your cup of tea, keep on watching. Now for these projects we're going to need the following things. We're obviously going to need the Raspberry Pi, the dongle for the Logitech mouse which I'm going to plug into the Raspberry Pi, my Logitech mouse, keyboard which you can also plug into the USB port of the Raspberry Pi, and the recommended power supply, HDMI to micro HDMI cable, and last but not least the micro SD card. So without further ado, let's get on with this. If you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with the latest tech tutorials, reviews and unboxings, I do everything including Fire Stick, Raspberry Pi and Android TV tips and tricks, so subscribe and hit the notification button. Now today I'm going to be looking at installing the Raspberry Pi TV Hat onto my Raspberry Pi 4. So what is the Raspberry Pi TV Hat? Well, the TV Hat allows you to receive and decode digital TV streams onto your Raspberry Pi through its onboard DVB-T2 tuner. Then you can watch these streams on any computer, tablet or phone connected to the same network as the Pi. The software recommended to decode the streams and view the content is called TV Headend. So in this video I'm going to show you how I built up the Raspberry Pi TV Hat and connected it to my Raspberry Pi 4. And I'll show you how I installed the TVN software and then scanned for channels and created playlists, which allows me to watch live TV on my phone, tablet or computer. Now I picked up my Raspberry Pi from Amazon for a few pounds and I've left links in the description of where you can get it. Okay guys, without further ado, let's get on with this. Okay guys, so here it is, the Raspberry Pi DVB TV Micro Hat. As you can see, my box got crushed a bit by the delivery man, but no harm done. So on the back we've got some tech specs, but let's just get stuck in. So in the box we've got 2 packets. One contains the board itself and the other one contains some headers and screws. Okay, taking a look at the board itself, you can see that it's basically the same size as a Raspberry Pi Zero, and it is in fact designed to sit on top of a Raspberry Pi Zero. But I'm going to be using my Raspberry Pi 4. Okay, let's take a quick look at the screws and standoffs. Oh no, don't do this at home folks. Now the board comes with an aerial adapter and some screws and a 40-way header and a set of mechanical spacers. So the first thing I'm going to do is connect the aerial adapter to the Pi TV. And it's quite straightforward, you push it in until it clicks. Now the next thing I'm going to do is attach the 40-way header directly onto the Raspberry Pi 4 board. And again, you just need to firmly push it down until you hear a small click. And then it's just a case of positioning the Pi TV onto the Raspberry Pi via the headers. Just be careful to line up the holes with the prongs. And again, you should hear a small click and you know it's in place. Now the next bit can be a bit tricky. You need to put 3 spacers between the Pi TV and the Raspberry Pi 4 and then screw them in firmly with the plastic screws provided. You really could do with 3 hands here. So once that's done, you should have 3 screws firmly in place at the bottom. Now don't worry about one of the spots, it seems to be resting on one of the chips, but that's the way it's designed. Now once you've done all this, connect up a mouse and a keyboard. Also connect an aerial to the aerial adapter of the Pi TV. Once you've booted up, open up a command prompt and type the following: sudo apt-get install TV headend, and then type enter. Type yes for continue. Okay, so it's going to ask you to create an account with a username and password. So my username is TECHFIGURE, press OK, and now you just type in your password, make sure you remember it. And here it's just letting us know where we can find the web front end for the TV headend software. So just point your web browser to the IP address of your Raspberry Pi and that port number. Okay, so let's click OK. So the next part of the installation should take a few more minutes. And that's it guys, TV headend has been installed on your Raspberry Pi. Let's move on to the next step. Okay, so I'm back on my computer now and I'm going to connect to my Raspberry Pi via its IP address and the port number they gave us, which I've highlighted here. Now I'm going to input my username and password and we're into the web front end of TV headend. So it looks fairly complicated, but don't worry, I'm going to guide you through this. Now we select our language first, which in my case is English UK. Next we select our electronic program guide language, which is also English for me. Now for the following fields, just add star for the username and password. This allows anyone on your network to log on to the TV server and watch TV programs. You can leave the top field blank. and just click on the Save and Next button. And here we're just interested in the Network 2 fields. You can see it's automatically selected as Sony Tuner, so we just need to select network type, and there's only one choice. Okay guys, we're on the final straights. Now this next one is quite important. You need to select your local transmitter. Now after doing a bit of research, I found that my local transmitter is Sutton Coldfield. You just need to find out where your local transmitter is, and there is a website tool on the Freeview website. Now when you select Save and Next, it will start scanning for the channels available to you, and this can take up to 15 minutes. Now as the scan progresses, the values in the fan muxes and fan services field increase, which is a good sign, which means you're getting some channels. Once it gets to 100%, press Save and Next, and then just tick all 3 of these boxes. And that's it guys, we're done. TV head end is all set up and ready to go. We just need to set up how we're going to view these channels. And as you can see, I've got a fairly generous selection of TV channels here. And we've got various tabs up top for settings, and below that we've got filters to filter out the channels. By the way, we've also got some radio channels, so we can filter out radio channels and TV channels. Okay, let's try clicking on a channel, and I think I'm going to try channel 1. Now there is sound, but I forgot to record it. So that looks great, there's no stuttering or screen tearing. Next I'm going to try channel 2, and again there's a slight pause. Now an easier way of viewing all these channels would be to create a playlist, and then you could view that playlist on any device using software like VLC. So let's open up VLC and begin creating this playlist. The first thing we want to do is select the channel and click on Play Program. This will open up the channel in your browser. Now what you want to do is copy the address in the address bar and go over to VLC and click on Open Media. Select the Network tab and paste in the address. Then click on Open and you can test if the channel works. You can then click on Stop. And what you want to do is save this as a playlist and give it a meaningful name. I'm calling it the channel name, and I'm saving it to my desktop. Okay, so we repeat this process, pick a channel, get the link, and paste it into the VLC player. Test to see if it works, and then also save this as a playlist on your desktop, and name the playlist the channel's name. Okay, so we have 2 playlists on my desktop, each containing 1 channel. Now we have these files on the desktop, we need to do a quick edit of these files, so just open them up with a text editor. Now what you'll see here is that it actually lists the program that the channel was displaying. Now I'm going to replace this with the channel name. So what this will do is display the channel name on the screen when you select the channel in VLC. And here I'm doing the same to the second playlist. Now what we're going to do next is use VLC to combine these 2 playlists into one playlist. I've taken both my playlists from my desktop and dragged them over to VLC. Now this has created a new playlist containing the 2 channels. Now ideally you would add more channels following the previous process, but I'm just adding 2 channels for demonstration purposes. As you can see, you can now see the channel name on the bottom there. Okay, so what we're going to do is save this as a new playlist, and I'm going to call it TV channels. So now this is the file you can share between your devices, and as long as you have something like VLC on each of these devices, you can open this file and watch your TV channels. And we can take a quick look at it and see what it looks like inside. And as you can see, we have the channel names on each of the listings. Now I'm going to transfer this file to my phone and show you how it works on the phone. Okay, so over on my phone, the first thing I'm going to do is open up VLC, and I'm going to find that channel playlist I transferred over. Now I have in fact added more channels to that playlist, and the first of these is channel 4.
So this is a big room. Yes, yeah, but it's still got the outside in it. Yeah.
Now if you touch on the screen, you can select any of the other channels.
On the human body, which finger is colloquially known as a pinky?
Now you can view the channels in landscape mode, and this will make the channels fill up the whole phone screen. But it doesn't seem to show up well when you're screen recording a phone. Now the other great thing here is you can use all the great features of VLC, which includes minimizing the screen, therefore allowing you to multitask. Now today I'm going to be delving into the world of Recalbox and showing you how to install it on the Raspberry Pi 4. So what is Recalbox? Well, it's a free open source application that allows you to organize, manage and play all your retro games. But instead of having to install and start up each individual emulator for each system and then locate and run their associated ROMs, Recalbox provides you with a convenient front-end interface in which to store and launch all your ROMs from a wide range of different emulators. It's probably one of the easiest ways to get started in retro gaming on your Raspberry Pi 4. So in this video I'm going to show you how to install Recalbox on your Raspberry Pi 4, and then go on to show you how to set up a controller, and also show you how to scrape artwork for your ROMs from the internet, all from within Recalbox. Now of course I'm not able to provide you with any links to ROMs, but you can find them yourself by doing a simple Google search. So obviously to get started you're going to need a Raspberry Pi 4. Now I'm using the 4GB model, but a 2GB model will work fine, and all its peripherals including a power supply, SD card, keyboard and mouse and a controller. I'm using the PS4 controller. So the first thing you want to do is head on over to the Recalbox website. I've put a link in the description below. Now there's lots of information here and it tells you exactly what Recalbox can do. It even lists all the emulators that are supported by Recalbox. And as you can see there's quite a few of them, including some of my favourites, the PSP Portable, Sega Mega Drive and the Nintendo 64, and not forgetting the ZX Spectrum and Sega Dreamcast. Anyway, what we need to do is head on back to the top and click on the download button. That'll take you to this page, and here you need to select the right link for your Raspberry Pi 4, and that just happens to be this one here. Downloading should take about 2 or 3 minutes depending on the speed of your connection. Now we're also going to need something to flash the Recalbox ROM onto your SD card, and I'm using the Pi Imager. I've left a download link in the description below where you can get this. Now once you've installed Pi Imager, open it up and click on the Choose OS button. Then scroll your way down to Custom and it will bring up a box. Just navigate to where you downloaded the Recalbox ROM and select it. Click the Open button. Next we need to click on Choose SD card, and of course make sure you have your SD card inserted in your PC and select it. And finally click on Write and click Yes to confirm. You'll then proceed to write and then verify Recalbox on your SD card. It should take about 2 or 3 minutes. Once it's complete you'll get the following message, just press continue. Then remove your SD card from your PC and insert it into your Raspberry Pi and boot up. Now the first boot will take a little bit longer than normal, and that's because the SD card has to be repartitioned to create a share drive. And it's that share drive that we copy our ROMs to, by simply dragging them from our PC to the share drive on the SD card. So it's super easy to add and remove games from Recalbox. Now this first boot is a one-time process, so the next time you boot up it'll be a lot faster. And that's it guys, you are booted into Recalbox. Now I've got my PS4 controller hooked up via USB, so I'm able to scroll through all the emulators available. Now this list will change if you add different ROMs from different systems. Now currently I've got no PlayStation Portable listed, but if I add PlayStation ROMs to the share drive on the SD card, the next time I boot up the PlayStation Portable will show up here with all the ROMs listed. But by default Recalbox does come with some ROMs with each of the systems listed. As you can see here, the Mega Drive has got several games already installed. So let's give Yazzie a quick try. As you can see, the interface on Recalbox is absolutely stunning. It's very smooth. So this is your classic platform game, very colourful I might add. Now the great thing here is you can see how easy it was for me to get Recalbox installed and working. Very easy for a newcomer to the Raspberry Pi to get set up and running. Now another classic that comes pre-installed with the Recal ROM is Kong. So as you can see, you can get set up fairly easily without having to install any ROMs, as I think Recalbox comes with around 33 games, distributed between the emulators that are already installed. Now if you have any issues with the buttons on your controller, you can reconfigure them. Pressing select on the controller will bring up the main menu and just head on over to controller settings. And from here you can also pair a Bluetooth controller. Now going back to the main menu, you can also connect to your Wi-Fi network. Just select network settings and then scroll down to Wi-Fi SSID, and then from here select your Wi-Fi network. Now getting your personal ROMs onto the Recalbox is quite straightforward. All you need to do is remove the SD card from your Raspberry Pi and insert it into your PC. You'll get 2 drives that show up, Recalbox and Share. Now you want to double click on the Share drive to open it up. Now on the Share folder on the SD card, open up the ROMs folder. Now in here you're going to find all the emulators that are supported by Recalbox. So all you need to do is copy over all the ROMs you have into the corresponding folders. So for example, I'm copying over my N64 ROMs from my PC onto the corresponding N64 folder on the SD card. Now I'm also doing the same for the PlayStation Portable. Now once you copied over all your personal ROMs onto the SD card, just remove it and put it into your Raspberry Pi and boot up. As you can see, the PlayStation Portable and the games have appeared on Recalbox. Now the only thing is there's no artwork with the game. There's a simple fix for this and I'll show you later on in the video. So I'm going to play some Street Fighter Alpha.
Select your character. Select your fighting style. It's showtime! Face it straight!
If some of your ROMs don't have any artwork, you can install them within Localbox. Head on over to Scraper within the main menu and click on Scrape Now. From here you can filter out what systems you want to scrape out artwork for. So currently I've got all 37 systems selected. Now once I press start, it will look at all the ROMs I have under each system without artwork and start searching online for artwork for them. So overall, I'll give the Recalbox experience 10 out of 10. It's absolutely fantastic for beginners. They can get started straight away. So in this video I'm going to be looking at how to install Android 11 on the Raspberry Pi 4. But first I'm going to go through and show you how it performs with videos, games and general apps. Now it's worth remembering this ROM is a work in progress, so it's still a little bit rough around the edges. Now with that said, let's take a look. Now if we swipe down and click on settings and then scroll down all the way to the bottom, you'll see we're running a tablet version of the software. If you click on About Tablet, you can see we are in fact running on a Raspberry Pi 4 with Android 11 and the Micro G version of the OMNI software. Now you can in fact also install the Google G Apps compatible version, but for this video I'm using the OMNI G version, which comes pre-installed with the Aurora App Store and the F-Droid App Store. Now once we're in the app, you can see we've got plenty to choose from here, and installing an app is simply just like any other app store. Just click and install. You can also search for apps, and in this case I'm going to search for Ada64 and then just simply click on install. Once it's installed, you can minimize the App Store and just swipe up from your home screen and you'll find it in your app drawer. Taking a look at the details here, you can see I'm running a Raspberry Pi 4 with the 4GB model with internal storage of around 5GB. CPU wise, we've got 4 ARM Cortex cores running at 1800MHz, and with the display we've got 3D rendering with V3D 4.2 and it's got OpenGL ES 3.1. There is currently no hardware accelerated video playback, but 3D graphics are working, so we are able to play a few games. Now of course multitasking works pretty well, so you can switch between windows. Now for media consumption, i.e. YouTube, I tried the YouTube app and it didn't work that particularly well. I got better results from the Firefox browser, which I downloaded from the Aurora App Store.
When her secret finds its way out, it'll be the death of him.
This was your choice. Now I installed a couple of games, and the first game I installed was Hill Climb Racing, and it worked very well, pretty smooth, no stuttering. Now this game is a few years old though. Now the second app I installed was Angry Birds 2. Now I do say install, but it didn't fully install actually. I got a couple of system errors and a message failed to load assets, and a gentle note to reinstall from the Google Play Store. Now installing this ROM to your Raspberry Pi is pretty straightforward. Just head on over to the link in the description below and it'll get you to this page, which is the official download and forum page. So if you do have any issues or questions, you can get them answered here. So I'm just going to click on the download link and it'll take you to the download section. Now if you do want to install G apps, click on the weekly link, but like I mentioned earlier, I installed the Micro G version. Now once it's downloaded, you can use something like Balena Etcher or PyImager to flash the ROM onto an SD card. So I'm using the PyImager. Click on the Choose OS button and scroll the way down to Custom. From here navigate to where you downloaded the ROM, select it and then select the Choose SD card button. From here you just select the SD card you've got inserted in your PC and then just click on Write. Now once that's completed, take the SD card out of your PC and put it into your Raspberry Pi. Power up your Raspberry Pi and watch it boot up. Now the first boot up should take around 5 minutes while it sets up the environment. And that's it guys, you have fully installed Android 11 on your Raspberry Pi 4. Now in today's video I'm going to show you how you can update your Raspberry Pi to boot from a USB or an SSD. Now I'm going to be doing this with the PiOS 64-bit software. Now you might be asking, why bother doing this? Well, there's a number of reasons, but the main reason is speed. So by default the Raspberry Pi boots up and stores all of its programs on a micro SD card. Now this has a maximum bandwidth of 50 megabits on the Raspberry Pi 4. Now by using a USB drive or an SSD, you could speed this up by a factor of 2. Okay, to begin with we need to open up a command prompt and type the following command. Now this will do a full upgrade on our Raspberry Pi software, and depending on the speed of your network it may take a few minutes. So to save you waiting, I've speeded this up. Now at this prompt it'll tell you to reboot at the end, so click on OK and let it finish off. Once you get to the command prompt, all you do is reboot. Okay, so once it reboots, we need to update the bootloader to the latest version. Now this latest update will let the Raspberry Pi boot from USB or SSD. So at the command prompt, we type the following command. Now taking a look at this, where it says critical, we need to change this to stable. And then type Ctrl X and save. And we can double check that it has in fact changed the file. Just retype the command and check it. So that's confirmed. Now to actually update the firmware, we need to type the following command. And this will actually just take a few moments to update. And then, like it says, you just need to reboot to apply the update. Okay, so back on your computer, you need to install your Pi/OS 64-bit software onto your SD card or SSD. Now I'm using the Pi Imager to do this. You could also use Balena Etcher. So you need to have downloaded the Pi/OS 64-bit version. I've left links in the description below. Under Choose OS, select Use Custom and navigate to where you downloaded the Pi/OS 64-bit version and select it. Now under the Choose SD card, make sure you choose your USB drive or SSD. And then just give it a few minutes to download and install and then verify. You can then remove your USB drive. Okay guys, so currently this is my setup. I've got the Pi4 in a metal Flirc case. I've got my Logitech keyboard and mouse attached to the dongle. And here you can see I'm going to remove the SD card with the OS on it. And I'm going to put my USB stick with the OS operating system into the USB port. And I'll now power it up, and you just need to give it a few moments to spark into life. And then after a few moments you should get the following message, and that is that it's resized the root file system and that it's rebooting. And now that's it guys, you are now officially set up to boot up from a USB stick or an SSD. So now we just set up as usual, get rid of those black borders, enter your keyboard preferences and your new password, and you're set to go. Now for general use, I found the USB stick I was using gave me a boost of around 25% in speed. So overall it's worthwhile to do this little project, as it is being officially supported. Today I'm going to set up a NAS, that's a network attached storage device, using the Raspberry Pi 4. And the software Raspbian Buster Lite. So you might be asking, what do you need a NAS for? Well, if you've got a lot of files like photos, music or movies, chances are they're sitting on a hard drive somewhere. Getting access to those files can be challenging without an expensive network attached storage solution. But now thanks to the improved bandwidth of the Raspberry Pi 4 with USB 3 and Gigabit Ethernet, you can build a fully featured NAS for a fraction of the cost. What do we need for this project? Well, we need the Raspberry Pi, we need a micro SD card, and we need a power supply. I've got a clicky one here. We also need a keyboard, a micro HDMI to HDMI, and a mouse. Okay, so that's the hardware sorted. Now we need to sort out the software. So go to the Raspbian website and download Raspbian Buster with desktop. We need to now flash this Raspbian image onto your SD card. And we're using the free software called Etcher to do this. I've left all links for downloads in the description below. Now this can take up to a couple of minutes to flash, so sit back and relax. Once it's transferred the image onto your SD card, slip it into your Raspberry Pi 4, power it up and watch it boot up. The first thing we've got to do before we set up our Samba share on our Raspberry Pi is to make sure everything is up to date. We update the package list and all our packages by running the following two commands. Now that we've got our Raspbian operating system up to date, we can proceed on to the installing of the Samba software to our Raspberry Pi. So to install the packages that we require to set up Samba, we run the following commands. Now before we set up our network storage on our Pi, we need to first create a folder that we will share. This folder can be located anywhere, including on our mounted external drive. For this tutorial, we'll be creating the directory within the Pi user home directory. So we create this folder by running the following command. Now we can share this folder using the Samba software. To do this, we need to modify the Samba config file. The smb.conf configuration file is where you will store all your settings for your shares. To modify the config file, we need to run the following command. Within this file, add the following to the bottom. This text defines various details for our share. After making the changes to the file, you can go ahead and save it by pressing Ctrl X and then Y followed by Enter. Next, we need to set up a user for our Samba share on the Raspberry Pi. Without it, we won't be able to make connection to the shared network drive. So here we'll be creating a Samba user called Pi with a password set to Raspberry. Run the following command to create the user. You'll be prompted afterwards to enter the password. Now, before we connect to our Raspberry Pi Samba share, we need to restart the Samba service so that it loads in our configuration changes. Now, before we start trying to connect to our Samba share, we need to know the Raspberry Pi's local IP address. So run the following command to print out the Pi's local IP address. Okay, once we have our IP address, we can go back to our PC or Mac. Now, I'm using a Mac, but I've also left instructions down below for Windows users. We begin by opening the Finder application. Now, with the Finder application open, click the Go button, and in the toolbar then click the Connect to Server. Now that the Connect to Server dialog is open on your device, you can go ahead and enter the details for your Raspberry Pi's SMB share. In the address box, you will need to swap out your IP address with the IP address of your Raspberry Pi that you retrieved earlier. Before it connects, you'll be asked to enter both your username and password that you set up earlier using the SMB password tool. And that's it guys, you should have successfully set up a network drive that you can access both on a Windows PC or a Mac computer. You should also be able to access it on other devices such as mobile phones. As you can see, I've already placed some files on the server. Let's just see how quickly we can access them. And yes, that's just a picture of my Windows screen error, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. Okay guys, if you found that video helpful, give us a like and maybe subscribe for more great videos to come, and I'll see you in the next one.